Yo, welcome back to the YGOHouse, everybody, where today we are bringing you yet another banger of a deck profile. Today we are going to be showing off PURE Tearlaments. This is the version of the deck that I'm going to be playing up until I get my hands on the Ycs cards. This deck is super powerful, as everybody knows. It is the best deck of the format. It's one I've been playing ever since it's come out, and even beforehand testing on EDO Pro. So I'm really excited to bring you guys my version of the list so far. Definitely, maybe not the most powerful. I know some people are still in danger. Some people have opted over into something like Branded with High Spirits. But I really feel like this deck has a lot of potential even in any variant that you build. So this is the one I've come up with. So we're just going to go ahead and get into the deck profile. But before we do, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our Twitter, TikTok, and even our Discord in the links down below. We're really trying to become more active in the community and have you guys all involved. So without further ado, let's jump straight into this. Everything is pretty self-explanatory in terms of how the tier package is going to look. We're running 3 copies of every single card. Rhinoheart, Shiren, Havness, and Merly. These are all really good in their own respect. Merly, if as a normal special summon, will allow you to mill 3 cards, and then of course it fuses, so this card's really abusable with some of the sprite stuff. Elf and Sprind help get this card to the graveyard in order to help fusion summons, and that's very important because this deck gets only 3 regular summons a turn in terms of the fusions. You want to be able to maximize on your chances of either hitting all 3 or playing through some sort of disruption to hit some anyways, because any amount of value you get off these cards is going to be good enough to help you win a game. So making sure that Merly is dumpable by cards or even special summonable off of Elf to mill 3 cards to help further your tier plays. This card's super important, you need 3 of it. Havness is the hand trap, insane, allows for turn 0 plays, allows you to play on your opponent's turn. One of the most effective ways to actually fuse is Havness. Shiren is also really good as an extender, really helps you put cards into the graveyard right away so you're able to get fusions off. Her being a level 4 pairs really well with Rhinoheart. This plus Rhinoheart is like the strongest opening the deck can have. It allows you to go for rank 4 plays like the Abyss Dweller. It's going to be necessary in the Ycs format as well, because before you start milling your opponent, there's going to be so many tiers you need to make your Abyss Dweller first. So really important card. And then the best card of the deck is Rhinoheart. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You need to run 3 of this card unless you have a conflicting normal summon and you're really worried about normal summoning. But even then, you don't normal summon very often in this deck. Unless you're super scared of conflicting normal summons, there's no reason not to run this card at 3. It's just too powerful. Moving on, of course, we have 3 copies of the Primeval Planet Perlareno. This card's insane. Everybody knows what it does by now. It is like one of the best field spells that's ever been printed. Absolutely necessary to be running this card at 3. No ifs, ands, or buts. Moving into the tier spells is where we see some new variations here. We are running 3 copies of Scream, 1 Heartbeat, and 1 Grief. I'm going to touch on Grief very briefly because this is the card that I think has the most potential to be cut. The deck is at 41 and you can honestly just run a clean 40 by taking this card out. This card's not bad though. There are going to be certain situations where you open this card and say you get Veiler to Impermed on your Kit Kalos or Rhinoheart. This card allows you to keep playing and actually push for game. Like in most situations, you're going to want to use this going second to kind of blow through what your opponent had in terms of interruptions. Use this to summon a monster and then send that monster, so you can even use a dead quote-unquote Havness that you have on the field to use this card. It's actually super important. The ability to add something back that's banished doesn't come up too much, but this card's not terrible, but it definitely is the one card that I could see people taking out because it is probably the worst of the group. Heartbeat's insane. Now having an in-archetype answer to Floodgates, super important. Allows you to send a card from the hand to the grave, so you have a Merly, your turn gets kind of interrupted, but you can end on this thing and you can keep playing again on your opponent's turn. Notice that that's a really reoccurring theme, is that this deck likes to play in their opponent's turn, which is kind of unfair. I know a lot of people don't like it, but every card is designed to do so, so this card's super important. And then I think honestly Scream is now the best Tearlaments like spell outside of the field spell. Like, this card's insane. Just having the ability to chain block either your Kit Kalos or Rhinoheart on summon is super important. But say you're able to set this up and you have a Havness in hand, you're able to mill 6 cards in your opponent's turn just off that interaction alone, and that is going to be enough to get you into some names. The reduction of 500 attack comes up a lot, especially in grind games, helps you push over some bigger monsters, or keep your monsters alive even is that much more important. And then it being able to search a trap if it's sent to the graveyard allows you to run now Tearlaments, Celiac, and Crime, because now you have a good searcher outside of just Kit Kalos. This card's really important to the strategy. I know a lot of people are going to be running this at 3. It's going to be the most popular opinion to run it at 3, and I think it's honestly correct. So speaking of the Tearlaments traps, we are on the 2 copies of Celiac and the 1 copy of Crime. Really good that you can search crime now, because it gives you just another answer to Dark Ruler No More. Even though this deck can play through Dark Ruler No More and not really be too worried about it, it's a lot better to have something that's actually the negate itself. So crime is super important. And then Celiac is insane. I think you still need to run this card at 2. No need to drop it down to anything lower than that. This card's super important to the strategy. We are running 2 copies of King of the Swamp as well as 2 copies of Polymerization. Yeah, just like kind of self-explanatory. I like to have them 1-to-1 in terms of 1 swamp for 1 poly, simply because if you mill like your 1 poly, you're going second or like going third board could be that much worse if you can't get into it. Being able to hold this going second, like do all of your normal stuff, wait for your opponent to burn interactions or attempt to stop you, and then be able to just, okay, I'm gonna Guardian Chimera you, potentially, is just too good. Like, this card's really powerful. And then King of the Swamp, his ability to actually replace a name is now even more relevant because of Royal Kalos needing Kit Kalos specifically. It actually comes up a lot more often than people would think. Next, we have 3 copies of Super Poly, 1 copy of Called by the Grave, 1 copy of Terraforming, and of course 1 copy of Instant Fusion. These are all pretty self-explanatory, don't need to say much. Instant Fusion is a 1-card starter in this deck. Terraforming is just another tier name, which is really good. Access to the field spell is better than just generic access to Rhinoheart. So people who run Rhoda over this, I don't get it. You need to be running either both or just Terra. Like, it's just better that way. And then Call By's broken. Super Poly should be pretty self-explanatory as well. This card's just so good. It breaks boards, it's able to be used offensively and defensively. Cleaning up board, or even like battle phase, being able to fuse your opponent's stuff away, or even your own stuff away to push for game. Just too powerful. Great interactions with this card. You need to be running it at 3 no matter what version of the build you're running. And to finish it all off, we are running, well, in terms of non-hand traps, we are running 2 Dynamiscus. I was running this at 1 because I was running Griffin, but I just feel like this card's better at 2 than it is at 1. If you're running only 1, I don't think it's worth it. You need to be able to see this enough in your opening hand to make a difference, but I don't think you need to see it in every opening hand. That's why I don't run it at 3. I didn't feel like I wanted to clog my hands too much. But this card's ability to out Mystic Mine is really good, and the fact that it discards its card effect is great. But it's also really good if you're able to chain this on top of either Crime or Celiac's effect in the graveyard or on field. Well, not the Crime, because the Crime will stop the chain, but on field anyways. But this ability to special summon itself as a level 2 as an Aqua is really good, so you can fuse with it. But also, because it's a level 2, it gets you into Merly and Elf even quicker. So this it gets you into even quicker. So this is really important to further the strategy of trying to get as many names as in the graveyard as possible. And Merly is the one that has the most generic foolish ability because of something like Sprint now. So Dynamiscus is definitely a card that people should be looking for in this version of the deck. It's not going to be played in the Ishizu variant because there's just too many other cards to be running, but in a pure build, I think Dynamiscus is very important. For hand traps, we are running 3 copies of Ghost Spell and 3 copies of Imperm. I know this could be the Bestial engine. You could run like 3 Magnemouth, 3 Druis Worm, which is really good. Like, I won't sit here and deny it, but I just feel like if you're really valuing your opponent's fusions, you're valuing your own fusions too, so why not have something that can protect you? I know you have 6 copies of those cards compared to only 3 copies of Ghost Spell, but you draw this enough, and honestly, if you're drawing this in tandem with full combo, you're going to be fine. And if you're able to draw both of these in the opening hand, like, this stops a lot of rogue decks turns. It also helps protect you and keep some, even something like Sprite can kind of care about a Ghost Spell. A lot of variants are trying to abuse Toad again, so being able to say no, okay, you're not going to do that. Stopping Double Cross is also really good with this card. Imperm is just Imperm, like, it's always going to be relevant in the format, so it was just like another real good generic hand trap. And while you could run something like Effect Veiler, you don't want to give them even more excuses to be able to Bestial you. Like, it's a light monster, so it can be hit with the Bestial effects. So that is it for the main deck. 41 cards. Couldn't get it any lower than that. You definitely can, I guess, by cutting the grief. That would make it an easy 40 for you, but I just opted not to cut the grief. I wanted to test the card out, and it's actually performed decently, but maybe not enough for me to justify keeping it in the deck at like a tournament. But moving into the fusions, we're running 1 Kit Kalos, 1 Rule Kalos. These cards, of course, go together, and the 1 Kaleido Heart. Insane, now that tiers have now another, like, really good going first monster to end on. That's not a dark, by the way, so it kind of helps you not get super polyed. Super important to have this card. The Solemn Warning effect is just really good. Kaleido Heart is really insane, but you're able to save this now to go in on your second turn, so you're able to kind of have a more flexible end board, I feel like, with the deck, now that Rule Kalos is a thing, and then everything runs through Kick Kalos, so it makes complete sense that you're running 2 of this card, especially now with the Bistrals running around. If they banish your 1 Kick Kalos, you can pretty much kiss the game goodbye. So you can't get away with running only 1 Kick Kalos anymore. I know some bigger variants of the deck that had a lot more Link monsters in it. We're trying to drop the Kick Kalos to 1, but you really can't afford to do that now with the Bistral engine running around. For the rest of our fusions, they should be pretty self-explanatory. We're on Muddragon of the Swamp, Garura, Dragostapelia, and Guardian Chimera. So all really good cards. All 3 of these theoretically are Super Poly targets. You're running into a lot of mirrors, so Dragostapelia is really easy to make off Super Poly. Surprising surprise, like some people still don't think about it. Garura is obviously insane, being probably the best Super Poly target that we've ever had. And then Muddragon of the Swamp as well is just really good for utility. Its ability to protect from targeting effects is good. It's not as relevant as it used to be, but it's still pretty decent. So you definitely have to be running all of these. They're pretty much mandatory at this point. We're also, of course, running the 1 copy of Abyss Dweller. This card's really good. It's almost an auto win against the mirror. Like, very difficult for a tier player to play through Abyss Dweller because they just can't do anything. They could try to wall up, put up their own Abyss Dweller even potentially, but the fact that they can't activate anything in grave just kind of cripples them for a turn. This is kind of why I don't think you need the Bistrals in this version of the build. You really get into level 4 so easily that you can go into this card and kind of just call it a day on top of all your other tier stuff, and it might just win you the game on its own. So super powerful card. For the Link package, we are of course running Dark the Dark Charmer, which I feel like is pretty much mandatory, IP Masquerena, Sprite Elf, Sprite Sprind, Nightmare Griffin, and Zeraboros. Still on the Zeraboros, I still think the card's good. The ability to wipe a board is just too important against like back row decks. You need to have that answer. Also in a grind game where like resources are a little bit more limited, if you're able to sneak in a Zeraboros because you can go into something like Dark and climb into a 4 and then just wipe the board and swing for game, in more simplistic game states, this card absolutely just wins you a game. Nightmare Griffin's still really good. You have so many good targets, Imperm, Dynamiscus, Super Poly, either of the tier tier traps, just really good. Sprint is dumb. Like, my favorite interaction is going IP with whatever into Sprint and then being able to dump my Merle on my opponent's turn, because not only do you have a high chance of milling with like something like Scream, which you're running 3 of, and even Habness if you have a stray one, but just being able to go into Merle as well to fuse yet again is just too strong. Most of the time, if I know I have the Sprint lined in play, I'll try to wait to go into Kaleido Heart if I have it available until like the last thing I do. I go IP, go into Sprint dump Merle, go into Kaleido Heart, pop a card, we'll shuffle a card back in. Pretty much game at that point, too much advantage. And then Dark the Dark Charmer again, pretty mandatory, and Elf is just really good for reviving the Merle to get you more mills. So insane that you can do all of this with the sprite cards, that they kind of synergize so well with the tiers, but Konami printed the cards and made them that way. There's nothing you can do but take advantage of them at that point. So that is going to do it for today's deck profile. Thank you all for watching. If you made this far, please comment down below what decks you would like us to see next. Definitely know that Bistro Dragon Link and Ycs Tearlaments eventually down the line are going to be coming to the channel from my end. I know we're trying to pump out a lot more content. Check out our shorts on YouTube, our TikTok. Make sure you check out our Twitter, as well as our Discord and the links down below. Again, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you guys want to see us do next. Really appreciate all the love that we've been seeing recently. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Remember, everybody is welcome in the Yu-Gi-Oh! House. Peace, y'all.